The office building locked its front doors behind her at 7:12 p.m. Maria stood by her car, the termination slip crumpled between her fingers. The words "final termination" blurred through the heat of her tears. She squeezed the paper tighter until the edges bit into her palm. She swiped at her cheeks with the back of her hand, but more tears kept coming. She had two kids waiting at home. They were expecting dinner. She clicked her car key fob, opened the driver's side door, and paused. Her bank app had sent a push notification an hour earlier. She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. The balance read -$12.70. She had no money left for groceries. The text reminder popped up next. Her last attempt to buy milk and bread had been declined the night before. She'd covered it with change from the cup holder, but there was no change left now. The last car pulled out of the parking lot, leaving her alone under a single flickering streetlight. She leaned against the doorframe of her car and could not make herself get in. She could not face two hungry kids with empty hands. She couldn't tell them there would be no dinner tonight. The wind picked up and the termination slip fluttered in her grip. She still couldn't move. She finally unlocked the car, got in, and shut the door. She turned the key, pulled out of the lot, and did not turn toward home. She drove 3 blocks past the grocery store, past the elementary school where her kids went, and kept going until she reached the old church at the edge of town. She pulled into the empty parking lot, cut the engine, and let the keys rest in the ignition. The dark swallowed the car whole. The streetlight at the entrance was out, so only the faint glow from the highway painted the edges of the brick building. These 6 months had not been just bad luck. It had been a slow, relentless stripping. Her husband packed his clothes in the middle of the night, left a note on the kitchen table, and never called or texted again. The warehouse cut her full-time hours to part-time 3 weeks later. Her rent went up. Her car needed new tires. The electric bill came close to being cut off twice. Every time she patched one hole, another tore open right beside it. Now this. She rested her forehead on the top of the steering wheel. The plastic was cool against her skin. The engine ticked as it cooled, the only sound in the dark. She did not want to cry anymore. She did not have the energy for more tears. She lifted her head, clasped her hands together on the leather cover of the wheel, and started to pray. She did not ask for miracles. She did not ask for everything to be fixed overnight. She just asked for one thing: the strength to get up tomorrow morning. That was all. When she finished, her chest felt lighter. The tight knot of panic that had sat between her shoulders for weeks loosened just enough for her to breathe again. She turned the key, shifted into drive, and pulled out of the parking lot, heading for home. She stopped at the gas station, dug out the last of her change from the cup holder, bought a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter, and drove the rest of the way. Her kids were already at the table, coloring and waiting. She served them sandwiches, cut up the last apple she had in the fruit bowl, and cleaned the dishes after they ate. When they fell asleep in their beds, she slipped out the back door and sat on the splintered wooden porch step. She clasped her hands again and prayed the same simple prayer. The next night, she did it again. 1 week turned into 2, 2 turned into 4, and the 10 minutes after the kids fell asleep became non-negotiable. No matter how tired she was, no matter how heavy the bills felt on the kitchen counter, she showed up. She sat, she breathed, she talked, quiet enough that no one but the crickets and the dark could hear. She never asked for miracles. She never demanded that her circumstances turn around overnight. Every night she asked for the same thing: the strength to wake up the next morning, the strength to try again. That was the whole of it. That was her routine. After 2 weeks of steady prayer, Maria adjusted her request. She started asking specifically for a new job. A full-time position, steady pay, enough to cover the rent and put food on the table without scrambling. She updated her resume at the library, printed copies on their last ream of free paper, and sent it out to every open listing within 20 miles of her house. The first interview came 10 days later. She arranged for her sister to watch the kids, drove across town, and sat in a glass conference room for an hour, answering every question as honestly as she could. She left feeling good. She checked her phone every hour waiting for a call. 3 days later, the rejection email hit her inbox. She read it twice, closed the browser, and sent out 5 more resumes. The second interview came a week after that. It was for a receptionist position at a dentist's office. The manager shook her hand, said she'd be in touch, and never called. Maria got the third interview 2 days after that. She woke up an hour early, ironed her best blouse, and drove through a rainstorm to get there. The hiring manager told her she was overqualified. She told them she just needed steady work. They still sent a rejection 2 days later. 3 interviews, 3 no's. The hope that had bloomed slow and quiet in her chest withered. She sat on the porch that night, stared out at the dark of the backyard, and changed her prayer again. She asked for one thing instead: clarity. Clarity to see the next right step. The rent due date was printed in big black letters on the notice taped to her front door. She'd counted down the days every morning since the first of the month. 7 days left. That was all. She pulled the kitchen chair out from under the table, sat down, and spread every bill she had across the wood. She pulled out her checkbook register and added up what she had left, line by line, pen scratching against the paper. Child support from her ex-husband hadn't come through this month. The last of the money from the warehouse was gone 3 weeks prior. She added the numbers again, then a third time. The total didn't change. It still wasn't enough. She picked up her phone, logged into her bank account to double check. She scrolled to the bottom of the transaction list, and there it was, an overdraft fee. $25 charged that morning for a purchase she'd made last week when she thought she still had a few dollars left. The fee pushed her balance negative, not just empty, overdrawn. Every new transaction would hit with another fee. Every new day would dig the hole deeper. She closed the browser, set her phone down on the table, and pushed the bills to the side. The kids were in the living room, watching an old cartoon on the TV, laughing at the silly characters. She listened to them for a minute, breathed in through her nose, and got up to start folding the laundry that had been sitting in the basket for 2 days. When they fell asleep that night, she slipped out to the porch like she always did. She didn't beg for a last-minute miracle. She just repeated the request she'd made the night before: clarity. She had 7 days. She would wait and keep showing up one day at a time. 6 days passed. Maria got up every morning, made the kids oatmeal for breakfast, walked them to the bus stop, and kept going. She cleaned the baseboards. She sorted through the kids' outgrown clothes to pack for donation, folding each piece slowly to pass the time. She checked the job boards every morning, sent 1 or 2 applications a day, and never checked her bank balance again. She sat on the porch every night, and every night she asked for clarity. It was the 6th day, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The kids were still at school. She was standing at the kitchen sink, scrubbing burnt spaghetti residue off a pot when the phone rang on the counter. It cut through the quiet of the empty house, sharp and sudden. She wiped her hand on the dish towel, crossed the floor, and picked it up. She didn't recognize the number at first, then saw the area code and the exchange, and realized it was the old neighbor who'd moved to the other side of town 6 months prior. They'd exchanged Christmas cookies back when they lived 2 blocks apart, but hadn't talked since she moved. Maria answered, voice steady. Hello? The neighbor sounded winded, like she'd been carrying boxes. She got right to the point. Maria stood holding the phone and ran the numbers in her head while the neighbor waited. The pay was half what she'd made at the warehouse. Half was enough to cover the rent if she skipped new clothes for the kids and cut out every non-essential grocery. Half let her work from home. No commute, no missed school plays, no scrambling to find a last-minute babysitter when one of the kids got a fever. Half was more than she had right now. She told the neighbor yes before she could overthink it. She started the next day. She woke up an hour earlier, packed the kids' lunches, then logged into the shop's social media accounts while they were at school. She sorted the order sheets, printed the shipping labels, and reorganized the packaging station at the neighbor's garage once a week. 3 months to the day after she started, the neighbor called her into the garage and closed the door. She'd just signed a big wholesale contract with a chain of boutique baby stores. Within 2 more months, her total monthly income climbed past what she'd made at the warehouse. She didn't just catch up, she moved past the old baseline. Maria still does her night prayer every single night, even now that the fridge is full and the rent is paid 2 months in advance. Every night after the kids brush their teeth and close their bedroom doors, she pulls a wooden chair from the kitchen to the back porch. She leans back against the siding, listens to the crickets hum in the neighbor's yard, and breathes the cool evening air. She doesn't beg for help anymore. She gives thanks. She lists the small, good things that happened that day. A kid's good grade on a math test, a text from a new client confirming an appointment, the way the sun hit the maple tree in the yard on her way back from the bus stop. She still remembers that first night, 7 months earlier, sitting in the dark church parking lot with a pink termination slip crumpled in her lap. She remembers asking for strength to get up the next morning. She remembers praying for a new warehouse job, for enough money to cover groceries, for the rent to not eat every dollar she had. She got none of the things she originally asked for, in none of the ways she expected. 3 job interviews landed 3 rejections, and that still stung, even with the good life she built now. But that string of rejections pushed her to stop asking for a quick fix and start asking for clarity. Clarity led her to the neighbor's call. Clarity led her to take the half-paying job that changed everything. Most people think prayer is a magic fix. They think if you ask hard enough, your circumstances will shift overnight, all the hard parts will disappear. Maria learned that's not how it works. Night prayer doesn't change your circumstances right away. It doesn't wave a hand and make the bills vanish. It changes you. It changes how you show up to the hard days. It changes what you look for, what you ask for, what you're willing to try. When the first path closes, last week a winter storm blew through the town and closed the post office for 3 days. The big wholesale order was due to ship by the end of the week, and Maria had 50 quilts stacked in her dining room waiting to go out. Any other time, 3 years ago, she would have panicked. She would have called the neighbors screaming, stayed up all night running through worst-case scenarios, cried into her coffee because everything was going wrong again. This time, she poured a cup of tea after the kids went to bed, sat on the back porch, and thought through the options. She mapped out 3 alternate delivery routes through the next town over, drove an hour early the next morning to the only open post office on the other side of the storm line, and got the first 20 quilts out that day. She split the remaining 30 into 2 more trips, met the deadline by half a day, and no customer ever knew there had been a problem. She didn't roar at the storm. She didn't demand the storm move out of her way. She just woke up the next morning, put one foot in front of the other, and handled what was in front of her. Inner strength grows not a sudden roar. It shows up quietly. It shows up when you sit in the dark and pray for enough strength to get through just one more morning. It shows up when you say yes to a half-pay job that nobody would call a miracle, but fits your life better than the old job ever did. It shows up when the storm hits and you don't fall apart. You just make a plan. It's there waiting for you every single night. when you take 10 minutes to sit quiet and sort out what matters. It doesn't fix everything overnight. It just changes you enough to wake up the next day, ready to try one more time. That's all you need. That's enough to get through the hardest days any life can throw at you. It just waits. All you have to do is show up.